Well, hello, creative community and kind folks. Uh, for those of you out there who are not part of the RPG with DBJ channel, you miss my mental droppings when I begin this channel and vocalize my internal machinations on the Discord channel over at Fantasy Grounds College. You miss out on all of that, and yeah, you can't participate that way. But for those who for those who have joined us, thank you very much. Now, this week we are talking about triangles, and kind of an odd, strange thing to to put in like a thumbnail and as a title, like triangles. What's that about? um, well, triangles, if you look down the bottom, like three connections for, as a GMing tool. I thought, I don't normally do this, but I thought I'd bring up a GMing tool that I find that benefits me when I'm stuck in a problem and when I'm trying to create worlds and situations and things. So this entire week, we take that subject, triangles, and then we subdivide it because each day has a different theme. Monster Monday, Tips and Tricks Tuesday, or actually it's been turned into Discord Tuesday, so even I'm wrong with that one. World Building Wednesday, and today is Third Pillar Thursday. What is Third Pillar Thursday? I got to explain it to you because if you type in third pillar, it comes up with all this other weird psychoanalytical things. Some of it flows into religion, but this has to deal with tabletop role-playing games. So the third pillar of gaming is the pillar of exploration, with combat and social interaction being the first and second pillar. But if you really want to stabilize something, you need at least three pillars to get under it. Although you might say a table probably needs four legs, but now you get a small little round endy little thing going on. You could get three legs underneath that bad boy. And exploration is kind of like my specialty because I'm your self-appointed third pillars in the tabletop RPG community. So now I got to explain, like, what the hell does that mean? Follow along. Just come on, deep dive with me. So using 3 points of connection, of course, and all you guys who've been with me for so long, you already know where I'm going to go with this. But I'd like to get a little bit deeper into the weeds, and that is using the environment itself like like a person who's directing a movie, and you want to find the location that is going to really embrace what it is that you are where you want the action and the adventure and the drama and the memories that happen for your tabletop RPG game. So I contend to you that some of your favorite action movies out there, if it wasn't for the location, a lot of the action wouldn't have that dramatic moment. It wouldn't have that epic feel to it. Hey, M, what's going on there? What's up? Awake now and online. I'm glad you could join us here, man. M is a lifelong friend of mine, and we both are like right on that same page. So he gets to see what I do here with spouting out my mental droppings. So okay, so triangles. How do we use triangles when it comes to using the environment? Okay, so you guys know that I'm a very visual individual. So is my dude M, and a lot of that has to do with where we have our action. So we have our PCs, we have our player characters, and of course they're the heroes of the story, even though a lot of them tend to be psychopaths and sociopaths, but whatever, we'll put that aside. And then we have our adversaries, who they're fighting. Oh, okay, sweet. Yeah, hopefully you'll have a good signal while you watch or listen in or something. But a lot of times it's like, where does it happen, right? You could have a confrontation with your. Let's pick something really boring. Let's pick up like the most common boring encounter: bandits on a road, or like goblinoid hordes, or a slick-suited gunmen that are unnamed lackeys to a mob boss or something, right? But having a fight on let's say, on the top of a train, speeding train, um, i.e., most movies that I can think of off the top of my head. Wolverine had a fight on top of a speeding train. There's plenty of westerns with fights on tops of speeding trains. And guess where speeding trains and subways go? They go through tunnels, right? You got to worry about tunnels. You have to worry about sliding off the side of a speeding train. There's probably people inside of a speeding train. You have yourselves snowy areas fighting on top of those frozen lakes. You know, I love myself some frozen lake, right? You have your the the idea of fighting, um, avoiding blizzards and snowfalls and avalanches and things. There's also, of course, there's man-made. Thank you, Kitty. There's also man-made locations and things. Fighting inside of a foundry or a factory, warehouses, um, so many other places. So, but let's make this a little bit deeper, okay? Because we are talking about triangles. So we have ourselves, we have our adversaries in front of us, and we need to start worrying or ramping up the worry, foreshadowing the the actual slamming down of the hammer that the environment may set before us. And for me, that's what I love. Now I understand. I know some of us are a little bit worried about the fact that, like, wait a minute, if I have a fight happen in, let's say, let's pick a foundry. Let's pick a dwarven forge and foundry with giant cranes and gears moving, and let's say there's big buckets of boiling ore, melted. You can't melt steel. Melted iron and tin and aluminum and copper. A bucket so big that you can dump one or more people inside of them and have them uh, uh, instantly die, possibly, or at least you're hinting that they can instantly die, right? You have yourself an assembly line chugging and moving down towards a place where it's dumping stone and rock into the hot forge where it can be poured off, and there are machines or even individuals in this forge with thick leather outfits and goggles on and using metal poles to scrape off the surface level of the liquid steel and, well, liquid metal that might one day become steel as they mix carbon into it and all this other kind of business, right? So you have this dangerous area. And for me, one of the cool things about having a dangerous area like a forge, or being in the region of an exploding volcano, or going through a swamp with gases bubbling forth underneath your feet, or walking across a dangerous thinly iced frozen lake or something, is that there's a chance, there's a slight chance, or maybe even increasing chance, that danger might befall both the players and or your adversaries. And I think in a weird way that can rub some some players the wrong, I mean, some game masters, I'm sorry, the wrong way, that you're like, wait a minute, DBJ, are you telling me that my goblinoid horde might actually befall the same danger that I'm going to put my players in front of? And so my answer to you is, yeah, let them get hit in the head with rocks, or fall through a crack in the ice and drown. Let them burn to death. Let a crane come by and knock them into a lava filled pit or something. Have them trip and fall on a conveyor belt and slide into let that happen to them. And especially let that happen for the players doing that to their adversaries, to have that thing happen. Remember, Indiana Jones, who was fighting a guy he tried to punch and kick, didn't work. But when that plane started to move and spin around on its axis, and that bad guy got slammed in the back with a blade, nasty, yeah. Effective, of course, right? Um, Indiana Jones is a classic. uh, oh, thank you, Dead Man. Dead Man posted into the Discord the prequel, the the Borderlands, the pre-sequel, had a train in the opening cinematic. As a matter of fact, for me, this is where some of us old heads, some of us grognards, really need to shut our mouths when it comes to video games, because there are a ton of video games. Now, many of them you might think to yourself like, you know what, that video I played that video game, it wasn't very good. But if you take a look at some of the opening cinematics and some of the gameplay of puzzle type role-playing games, I'm looking at you, Zelda, various versions of Zelda, and Lara Croft and your machinations. Yeah, Deb, man, I'm gonna take a look at that. The thing is that video game designers understand what are many of them are experts at creating puzzles. Now, you guys know, yeah, yep. James Lundell brings up Metal Gear, Metroid. As a matter of fact, guys, pop in some of your favorite puzzle games. And it doesn't matter what generation. We're not judging it on that. We're judging like, okay, so my character has to jump to these 3 areas or move these boxes or get this helm or apply or hit the button to have the door open in enough time for me to swim under the thing. You know, there's a ton of video games that do that. And heck, I remember back with Earthworm Jim and what was come on, you guys, and this is at least 10, 12 years older. What was the game where you played a small escaped refugee because your people were being bottled or canned as food, and you had to escape the factory and run out into the world? Oh, wow. Yeah, Pitfall. Pitfall is a classic of grabbing the rope and swinging across, and what was the one of the first cell phone games where you ran, slid, jumped? Was it Temple Run? Temple Run was another one. As a matter of fact, even Angry Birds is a version of that. And so that's why I talk about the environment. The environment is your hazards, your traps, your puzzles, your riddles, your layers, all those things all wrapped up together. And maybe it involves, you know, I like to bring up the second Matrix movie. I know some people don't like how the entire movie took place, but that entire highway scene, the whole idea of having a chase and then jumping from car to car and fighting on the back of 18-wheelers, and that entire scene, riding a motorcycle through, you know, on a highway, the reverse direction and all that entire that whole scene in itself encompass so many different elements of using the environment and having that triangular nature to it, right? And sometimes what you can do as a game master to encourage your players to use and abuse the environment is have your enemies first start doing it. Have your NPCs try to push the PCs over the edge of your storm-tossed pirate ship. Have them time when the crashing waves sweep over the deck of the ship. Have your NPCs push your PCs into the location where the white crested waves sweep across the ship and try to knock them down and then sweep them over the edge, right? Have your NPCs run up to the top catwalk and turn the lever that's going to pour the hot liquid from the forge on top of where the PCs are standing, or dislodge the cable that's going to dump 5 tons of unsmelted ore on top of where the PC's blocking them. Yeah, Pitfall. I mean, a lot of these games have stacked or multiple levels of problems as well. For example, you have the idea of, like, say, jumping from pillar to post. And if you jump on one plateau or pillar, you have to jump to the next one and to the next one and time it correctly before the one behind you falls. Can we look at the first Lord of the Rings as they're running down the steps without handholds? I still got a problem with that, breaking so many governmental OSHA rules without, but I don't know. What is it about dwarves and no handrails? I don't know. They can't be that lazy. They damn near carve out a whole mountain. They can't spare a couple of stones and make a handrail. But whatever case might be, right? It's it's the escalation of the environment as well. Now, if we let's get a little bit deeper and talk about, let's throw some mechanics in there for having a triangular element. Now, you got that, James. James is like, oh, OSHA, there would be wheelchair access. Yeah, and a brightly lit, blinking exit sign with an arrow pointing to the proper location, right? I mean, if you're going to bother having a deep maze down in the Underdark, you better have yourself, it better be well lit because you're going to get in some trouble, right? Malika says an environment can be a second character within a game master story. It keeps the PC's attention and minds focused. Yeah, we always on the same page here, dude. Yeah, because the environment is that second character. It is that. Now, you got to remember, it's a place to be used and abused. So let people set fire to things. Let them tumble things over in warehouses. Let the player characters come up with an idea of trapping the enemies in a deep valley and then dumping rocks on top of their heads. When the player characters are in a deep sewer and the water is filling up in the sewer from, all the people flushing, or, deep rains or something. And there's a grate in front of them that's blocking them. And then, of course, you have to have that one person has to take a deep breath and swim down deep and try to use their great strength to move the iron grate before the water fully fills up. I'm looking at you, any movie that took place underground. I'm looking at you, any movie that took place in a submarine or aquatic environment, whether it's a cave or a submarine or the lower portions of a ship or the Titanic or something. The Descent, yep. I'm looking at you, and I think I am single-handedly trying to encourage us to think of the environment as a character itself. And sometimes it's a weird muscle because I think we haven't used it very often, much like trying to blink one eye or another, or trying to raise one eyebrow and trying to raise the other one or something. Sometimes it's a muscle like I haven't used. Let's see, I can use one eyebrow. It's like, have we actually used those environments much? I'll contend to you that no, a lot of role-playing games don't. Or if they do, I'm looking at you, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, they do it pretty simply. They call it, difficult terrain. That's a little too simple for my taste personally, but I think we can reskin a hell of a lot in our games and make them difficult places to navigate, and allow us to let those difficult places to navigate, or potentially difficult places to navigate, become a memorable location all to itself, right? It's the idea of fighting on top of a subway or a train or whatever the case might be. Kind of funny to have one of your bad guys stand up and think they've got you under their got you dead to rights, and then have their back of their head explode as the speeding train goes through a tunnel or something, right? It's the cool idea of, like the movie Wanted, where oh no, I'm not going to be able to duck down and not crush my body, have my body crushed by going through the tunnel. I'm literally going to jump in the air, run over top of a bridge, and land on the other side. I'm looking at you, the movie Wanted, as Angelina Jolie does her back bend and whatnot, letting those things happen and having your PC start to use their creative mind to have those really fun action sequences happen, and embracing the chaos. I think that's another issue when it comes to triangulating your bad guys, your heroes, and then the things going around them, is embracing the chaos. And what I mean by embracing the chaos, because M is going to remember this one. We used to play a game called Feng Shui quite a bit. And Feng Shui, the rules completely embrace the idea of the Hong Kong action movie. And Feng Shui actually has a rule in it. I kid you not. Feng Shui has a rule that says if you try to, what today we call spamming something, if you try to perform an action that is both boring and repetitive, you get a penalty on your die roll. Like if it's boring and all you're doing is just trying to get a simple advantage, but you're not being very descriptive, you get a penalty for it, right? So um, one day we had I'm getting to your comment, Malika, but one day we had an action scene in a crowded um, amphitheater, like a sporting event place. And I remember Malika's character was like, I'm going to grab up onto the pipes that are above everyone's head and kind of like monkey my way across them and then do like a raven kick to kick a fire extinguisher at one of the the bad guys with the gunmen while the people are panicking below me or something, right? Yeah. Facts. Yeah. He's like, that's not how it happened. Doing your doing your politician point, the professional politician point. Take index finger, curl it in, take thumb, brace index finger, and point to make your point. Like I said, speaking of environment and use of it as a challenging character, Die Hard #1, the Nakatomi Plaza building, it was used, abused, and an obstacle for the protagonist and antagonist. Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, if a PC told me, one of the players was like, I know the roof has explosives on it. Could I take the fire extinguisher and tie it around my waist and then do like a dive off the side of the building so that I'm like swinging away from the explosion, and then I'm gonna swing into one of the levels below me? Yeah, listen, if you're going to embrace the cinematic of the cinematic environment, you're going to have to say to yourself, yes, that's where we as game masters have to say, yeah, that is cool as shit. You know what I mean? Instead of going, well, the physics involved in something like that aren't really realistic. And I mean, it's a little problematic and stuff, it's embracing. Sometimes it's embracing some of the ridiculousness while still sticking with the idea that that action probably would happen this way because they're heroes. Now, would you say, hey, if Bruce Willis suddenly was like, I'm going to flap my arms and fly, you're going like, come, really, dude, like that? Does that fit into that thing? No, it doesn't fit at all. Deadman says The Descent was originally a PC game in 1995. I did not know that. I did not know that. Oh, yeah. Talk about Die Hard, all that glass and the explosions. And I'm going to mention something that's going to bother a lot of player characters out there. And I love embracing the small things because the small things can become the big things. If we remember from the original Die Hard movie, not only was John McClane, kind of a badass, but he was also mortal. He was also human. For example, remember the conversation he has with a person on a plane that's like, hey, listen, if you want to get over your jet lag, take your shoes off and with your bare feet, just rub your bare feet into thick carpet, right? So he does that, and then he spends the rest of the movie running around barefoot. Now, there aren't too many player characters that are like, yeah, I'm going to take off my armor and just walk around naked. I'm going to walk around barefoot. You know what I mean? Like, there aren't too many player characters that are going to honestly. Hey, P, good to have you. You said you weren't going to be here, so you went back on your word. You're supposed to be at work anyway. But there aren't too many players who are willing to embrace their weaknesses. And some of those problems and weaknesses and hazards can come about through very common sense things. Like I've brought up the fact that if you're in a frozen tundra, will your fingers freeze and get a little frostbite on them? And if they do, can you really handle, I don't know, thieves' tools? Can you really cast those spells with somatic components? Maybe you might have to stick them under your armpits or blow into your fingers to get them warmed up again to start to use them. When you're climbing those sheer cliffs, how many hands do you have accessible while you're climbing and holding onto a rope and holding onto a weapon and your shield and your magical focus and your religious symbol and right? Um, yeah. Sam says, I yeah, I hop in and the little first thing was I'm gonna take off my armor, hop around naked, bucket naked. But you get my point. There's a lot of things in the environment that are not there's no clear way to make that a mechanism, but it's still a problem whether it means tight corridors where you don't have excellent sight lines, where there are loud noises and you're unable um, to hear your allies and communicating with them. We see oftentimes that supposedly as good as cell phone coverage is, that our PCs go into areas where there's no cell phone coverage. I can't hear you. You're breaking up. Doing that too many times, I'm sure will get on player characters' nerves. But not being able to communicate, like again, being barefoot, being in a place where you can't fit through a tight space and you must remove your arms and or armor, having things fill your arms, or being blinded, or being unable to hear, or needing to balance across a very tight gap, the classic being on the outside of a building and having to press your body against the outside of the building while you move across, a 6-inch ledge, 38 stories in the air. Plur says, we all know PCs have several phantasmal arms with which to hold on to all the junk they carry. They're like Doom Guy. Yeah, there's always like, yeah, I've got my crossbow ready. I've got my sword ready. I've also got my shield. I have a spell component ready to go. Just in case, I also have a rope held, and I also have my spell component. So, yeah. Oh, and I have a free hand as well. Yeah, which one of my swords should I use? There's always that. What's the classic image by that artist, Dwayne? The Pathfinder artist, the most prolific Pathfinder artist, with the guy that's walking around with all the magic items and swords on his back and everything. Yeah. Malika says that vulnerability adds the humanity and ability to overcome their adversary within a challenging situation. This adds growth and ability to think on your toes. And that's why I am single-handedly, your self-appointed third pillarist, trying to get people to think outside the box and challenge the notion of using the environment, and then creating ways so that, let's not keep it stale. Let's have a third point of, instead of a straight line, let's have a third point so that we can have different situations, so different people can shine as well. Going into that factory with the classic factory with the tubes that are blasting out steam, and you have like there's like condensation dripping off the tubes, and you can hear machines rumbling in the background, and it almost feels like it's breathing, and you're going through tight areas, and maybe you have a bad guy with a giant wrench in their hand, and they're spouting out a bunch of threats and stuff, come out wherever you are and all that kind of business, and having fights and getting your weapon knocked out of your hand and moving around. While we're doing these things, sure, maybe your archer or your close combat people might shine, where your ranged opponents or ranged characters are like, well, there's no clear sight lines, I'm at a disadvantage, both literally and figuratively, right? Maybe it's true that they won't be as effective or something. Maybe when the players are trying to navigate chest deep water, there's something sliding down beneath them and they're out of their element or something. Sure, that's possible. They might not be as effective within those regions. There might be some other players who are like, you know what, my barbarian's going to slice at the pillars of the the roof or the catwalk or the abandoned building or something. I'm going to knock the roof down on top of them. The classic, I'm going to take my battle axe and split the ice so that the hundreds of charging barbarians that are coming at us are going to fall into the frozen lake or something like that, right? Taking care of, okay, roll D100. You take care of, roll 67 bad guys with that slice in the ice. You're like, yeah, but you guys are gonna have to make your deck saves too, or you're gonna fall in. It's like, that's all right. Let's get out of here. I'm gonna make sure they don't fall in, or something like that, and have them run for it. Also, having encounters that happen in the middle of people doing things. There's a raging river. It's very dangerous to cross. So one of the PCs takes a long rope and drags it across the river so everyone can hold on to it. And maybe one PC is on one side of the river, maybe you have two on the other bank of the river, and there's three that are making their way across the river, holding onto the rope, and roll the dice. That's when the enemy attacks. It's going across the rope bridge. Half of them are across. Somebody's in the middle, or maybe two or three of them are in the middle. And that's where the goblins on the flying pterodactyls come in. It's the let's wedge the pneumatic door open of the space station, and a few of us slide through, and that's when the alien xenomorphs attack. Right? So half of us are in our spacesuits, and the other half of us are not. That's when the hackers in the space station open up the outer hatch to allow the explosive decompression to draw some of the people out into space or something, right? That's when grabbing people and snatching them in the middle of the action and in the middle of the exploration part of it is a great way to ramp up the tension, where some of them are prepared, some of them are not, and using your opponents as a method of, going like, it's already dangerous for us to swim down we're already panicked because we're swimming down deep into flooded caverns. All of us armored people took our armor off because there's no way we're swimming in plate mail and chainmail, right? We already don't know how long we're going to have to hold our breath to go from cave to cave. Some of it's waist deep, some of it the water is literally over our chins, and we have to like breathe in a little bit of air and stuff. And then you're going to insert I don't know, a blind albino crocodile swimming down in there. That's when you really are the longest playing grognard like myself that's been playing, like myself and Malika's been playing role-playing games for 30 plus years. Well, that'll make our sphincters clench when you start doing things like that and you start ramping up the tension. And it's a great way to go, especially if you're just starting to use these techniques, to go, I'm not sure how this is going to work. I don't know. I know I want to have an adventure in an abandoned building, but I'm not sure exactly what things I should use. But you can foreshadow a lot of that, right? Using our video games and using those video game puzzles, and using a lot of our intellectual properties or mass media, books, movies, television shows. We can use one area, and then we can all come up we can all come up with variations on using that one region in our world. So let's take an abandoned building, right? We have the idea of rooftops, steps, and floors collapsing. We have the idea of crashing maybe through one of those those angled glass pane windows that are always on the top of rooftop buildings. I never know what they're called. Skylights. Yeah. Skylight, almost like the angled windows are like skylights, so people can fall through those. There's the idea of, after falling through a collapse, there's the idea of debris collapsing down on top of you as well. Some of that debris, you talk about falling damage, being impaled, being trapped under layers of debris. You have height differences as well. Hey, I'm on the roof. I'm on the second floor. I fell down into the basement. Zeb's like abandoned building, maybe gargoyles as guards. Oh, I love that show, Gargoyles. Um, it that cartoon was better than it needed to be. It very much was. Yeah, gargoyles as guards. Now, of course, James is like, yes, yeah, that show was better than it deserved to be. So, oh man, they need to bring that back, or at least bring back the reruns or something. Um, the hell. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, Keith David's voice. Says like Keith David sold the hell out of Goliath. Yeah. Oh man, he's a great voiceover actor as well, man. Oh my goodness, Keith. I can't do a proper Keith David voice, but Keith David, he had that really like him and the gentleman that does the voice for Batman in the Batman animated series. Man, they just like their voices. Oh, yep. Yes. Keith David's voice, deep, silky, um, uh, uh, I don't know, just whatever. Like I said, man, better than it needed to be. He could have played that. He could have played that up and been like, just give me my paycheck. I'll come. um, um, Not familiar with a lot of Mass Effect, but there's so many. You talk about voices. Squirrel. Yeah. Oh man. Malika says rats, roaches, human waste, trash in abandoned buildings. Yeah. Um. um. Oh, Zev says he's the guy on the ads that say the few, the proud, the Marines. Yeah, that is right. Um. Wow. Tesla says Green Ronin did a serial numbers filed off a version of Gargoyles for Mutants and Masterminds. I did not know that. I did not know that. Mutants and Masterminds, unsung hero of a role playing hero system. I love Mutants and Mastermind. But yeah, in abandoned buildings between like rats, roaches, human waste, trash, the idea of setting off a fire. Maybe there's a gas main break, and the gas. Of course, you break the gas main first, and then there's a threat of someone igniting the gas main itself for something to happen. Which brings me to Jason Bourne, the Jason Bourne series. How often Jason Bourne did not run around with a weapon, but was able to find one in various areas and allowed, if Jason Bourne was a player character, definitely a specialist on using improvised weapons, and definitely the game master embraced the idea of allowing that player to use improvised weapons. I see you, Fat Ninja. I can hear you. I'm standing right here, man. Yeah, Kevin Conroy did the voice of the Batman and Batman series. I knew it wasn't Keith David. I was just saying like, oh, and this other guy did this thing. And yeah, I am the knight. Oh shit. So anyway, using making our environments a character in our stories, I think, is a weird way of thinking about it, but I think is something that if we tend to embrace it, becomes very, very very, very memorable. I agree with you, Zev. Keith David would have made a very smooth Batman as well. There are a number of voice actors, I think, that would have done an excellent job. I think Kevin Conroy, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Conroy is going to physically portray Batman in an upcoming live action version of Batman. Just a blurb aside in a character, one of the CW shows. He's going to appear once. Yeah, Andy Serkis has got a pretty good voice. If of course being a master of CGI, capturing the physical elements, but in many of our favorite many of our favorite locations when it comes to action movies and video games and such, they will foreshadow those things ahead of time. So for example, let's go to Road Warrior, like Fury Road, right? Mad Max Fury Road, and the other Mad Max movies in the Road Warrior series. Okay, you have this blasted landscape, mostly desert, barren locations, rocky. adding some other things in there. They give you a little bit of history. Guzzling was in Fury Road. There's the idea of water being a source of contention as well. This mysterious and fictional paradise somewhere out there in the outer landscape that everyone is thinking of. And a lot of times in these locations, you can foreshadow the way your environment as a character is going to act and react with your player characters. So a desert is going to have yourselves, I don't know, quicksand, an oasis, maybe some sandstorms, very tall sand dunes, almost like physically created waves where you have to go up and down the sand dunes. You're going to have sand collapse on people. You may have rocky plateaus. You may have mazes of rocks where people can find purchase or height or navigate inside of tight locations and such. Malika says MacGyver and Jason Bourne are great role models for PCs on how to use the environment to their benefit, but make your ideas clever, practical, and workable. Jason Bourne rolling. How quickly was the director able to show Jason Bourne's cleverness, where he grabs a gas pipe, breaks the gas pipe open, rolls up a magazine, sticks it into a toaster, pushes the toaster down, and walks out the door, right? 1, 2, 3, and we go, oh, I know exactly what the hell's going to happen. He walks out the door, bad guys bust into door, black turtleneck wearing dudes break into door, nameless mooks explode as the gas main explodes, right? So I hear you. I'm not even gay, but if Keith David did Batman's voice, I might even melt. Hell yeah. Oh man. Yep, absolutely. Oh man. James Keith David in Saints Row. I don't remember that. Did he do the voices for that? Zevron says a sewer with sticky and shifting muck that's hard to maneuver. You might see a crab-legged monster that has multiple legs to keep it stabilized. Oh, did he? I did not know that. I did not know that. But yes, sewer systems. Of course, you have to have yourself first you enter the sewer system, right? And it's like, oh, stinky, with unidentified brown stuff floating on the top. You can call it chocolate and lemonade if you wish, but yes. And then, of course, you have to go into areas where you go even deeper into the muck, having places where the PCs may be stuck behind. Of course, the classic metal grate, maybe even having hearing the roar of water as it floods into the sewer system and rounds a corner, and maybe blast the PCs down the sewer system to be ejected out into the muck and grime of the tail end or something, right? Maybe even having ocean waves and sewer systems and things, high winds during a hurricane, blow people down and move them around. And I think the environment it really, really can transform how the players have to portray their actions, especially if you have a place where they are having a battle in a hurricane and a PC fails their dex roll and they start getting blown away or slide down the street, or the item that they're holding gets ripped out of their hands, or debris gets ripped off of a rooftop and almost impacts them, or someone gets impaled on a metal fence, or that school bus, the winds are moving. It's like a category 5 hurricane, and it starts lifting up or pushing an 18-wheeler or a school bus, and maybe there's even people inside of it, or someone climbs up to the top of a crane, and even the crane starts to sway and move in a construction zone with steel being lifted up on unsecured steel up on girders, swaying back and forth on a cable that snaps. And you see what you see how my mind is just like, oh, and then this other thing can happen. Oh, and then there's this other thing, and then oh, there's an electrical spark, and electrical lines go down. Oh, the power goes out, and now that you're plunged into darkness, and oh, the electrical arc might fall into that pool of water, and so on and so forth, and start stacking and stuff. So oh man, you guys are like rapping. I'm gonna have to send this entire chat over to Keith David's like Twitter feed or something. You guys are making kind of making him feel a little warm and moist, I think. Yeah. Do you think he might beat he might beat Jack Bauer for the 24 series? I don't think Norrisisms, although you got to admit, Chuck Norris is the man for going over to take a picture with a bunch of guys who painted his name on the side of the cannon of a tank. I mean, that's some honor and some balls right there. I like that. As everyone says, he's referred to his mentions, has 30 tweets. Yeah. But anyway, you guys know where I'm headed with this. Now breaking down into let's get into some gameisms when triangulating some of our hazards and things. First, you might want to decide time periods, whether you're using some kind of initiative system. So are you going to decide on like a randomized initiative? I know in 5th edition they have layer actions that happen on initiative 20. I personally pick initiative 10 for my cinematic environs, just because I find them to be like it's supposed to be more mundane. It's not supposed to be supernatural in effect. You might want to decide on a randomizer if something randomized will happen to players, whether there is a randomly struck by lightning, randomly hit in the head by debris picked up by a hurricane, or something of that nature. Reskinning some. I hear you say it's like feudal Japan. I love myself some feudal Japan, but not today. There's also reskinning some things that already exist in the game and making that part of your world. For example, I contend that if you have special powers in your game, whether there's wizards and druids and clerics using magic, whether you have Jedi using psi powers or something, I would contend that it probably makes a lot of sense that if a wizard can summon up an earthquake or a gust of wind, magically, that they are probably duplicating the effects of a real gust of wind or a real earthquake or a real bolt of lightning or whatever the case might be. So just take the spell effect and go, oh, I will just use the effects of a gust of wind, except extending it over a larger area or in a particular location. The force. Yeah, right. Hey, I'm going to use the force to, I don't know, create some other. I know there are force powers that do far more things than make you jump far or use telekinetic pushing and things like that. So I would just reskin some of those for some of my effects in the game. Also, just use plain old statistics: strength, dex, con, endurance, enlightenment, charismas. You use all of those stats and use them in a game. For example, player characters are in the sewer and someone flushes and 100,000 gallons of putrid water starts splashing through the area. Give the flowing water a strength. Or reskinned a thunder wave or a gust of wind as the rushing water, and give it a strength of, I don't know, 14 or 18, or if you're using a percentile system, give the strength a 68 or something, and go, all right, you're gonna have to roll your strength against the strength of the water to hold on, or you're gonna flow down the way and get moved and pick some randomized or specified number. You're gonna get pushed 30 feet or 10 meters or whatever the case might be in your particular game. Zev says I just got to use the right amount of metachlorians. You might want to take something for that. I don't like having too many metachlorians. It creates bumps and they're filled with pus. Yeah. Sorry. Bad visual. Anyway, but you get my point, right? Whether you are reskinning pit traps, reskinning collapsing ceilings, reskinning, I don't know, an acid spray, and the acid spray, I'm going to use that, or reskin some of your monsters. Zev brought up crabs and gargoyles and things, but you can reskin some monsters. You want an acid pit? Pick one of your favorite oozes and fill that with a pit of acid. Just don't make it alive, right? If you want robot arms or something in your dwarven forge or whatever, pick an iron golem or whatever, and just like, okay, it just doesn't move, it just starts to grab things randomly, and lift them up and place them on the conveyor belt or drop them into the hot molten ore or something like that. Could be a great possibility. You can even institute things like what happens in a lot of urban environments. Someone steps into the street, and what do they get hit by? A bus, or run over by a tractor trailer. What happens on docks that happens invariably? There's a crane lifting up a cargo container or a pallet full of goods and services. Goods, maybe not services. The crane itself is a service lifting up goods and things, and it lifts up in the air and moves across. So what a great way to have people jump on it or hide behind it or have a fight on top of it or have it tumble on something, whatever, So says, I'm gonna pass out trying to quit soda because I drink way too much. 7 a day. The lack of caffeine is making me very tired. Be careful, dude. Drinking a lot of caffeinated. You can drink a lot of calories that way and a lot of caffeine. Just wean yourself off of it a little bit. If you get one of those places where you can freestyle machines, you can start cutting yourself into something else that you like. Yeah, I hear you, dude. I hear you, Zez. Murder on the kidneys. I agree with you. I'm a big Arnold Palmer person. I love tea and lemonade, but maybe that's the East Coast thing. Whatever. Anyway, guys, we are heading towards the hour mark. You guys thank you for letting me rant and rave. Although I did get to bring up, tea and lemonade together. Oh, mate, you're not familiar with that across the pond? Yes, here, tea and lemonade has always been a thing in the South and East of the U.S. It became known as an Arnold Palmer when the golfer Arnold Palmer decided that's what he wanted to drink, and people started calling it that, although it has existed for well longer than himself. But yes, it's half tea. It's called a half and half as well. Yeah, you're in jolly old England. Oh, I bet you drink your tea with your pinky in the air and your teeth closed shut. I'm just picking. I'm picking. Go ahead and drink your Earl Grey, whatever. Thank you, people are like, damn right. I apologize. I will refrain from my stateisms. And let you go on that. Oh man. Well, it was like, well, we had to amend things God intended every now. Yeah. Besides, we tea drinkers here, we like to poison our tea with things like honey and sweeteners and milk and all kinds of other stuff. So there, in your face, Polora, in your face. I'm an idiot. Yeah. Earl Grey and lemon, whatever. Come on. Okay, you got it. That I have to end it on that. So Polora exits the show with a GTFO. So I will oblige. We have come to our hour mark. Thank you very much, you guys. Today, you guys let me rant and rave on one of the things that is close to my heart, so I really appreciate it. All of you, hey, Malika, peace, dude. Have a great day at school, dude. Everybody, thank you very much. Your time is extremely valuable. You spend your time with me. So I hope you are getting something from this. I hope your value, I hope I'm able to give you some change back from your time with us. Everyone, thank you. I'm going to hang out in the Discord chat over at Fantasy Grounds College after this for just a little bit. Yeah, I hear you, P. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Tomorrow is Future Friday, and Future Friday, we will be talking about triangulation as well. Everyone, have a great one. I'll see you later.